Hello. Hello, everyone. Elena, Lily, Joel, Haley, Julia, Kenzie, John, Clark, Sean, Kaylee, Leah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Presidential Poems. I am the spirit of past presidents. You can see I am in the Oval Office of today, but you can tell as I go in and out of phases that I am a specter of the past presidents. Today, we will be reading presidential poems, and we will be discussing the presidency, the Electoral College, and also the conventions and the executive branch by reading poetry. Let's jump right in. It's very exciting. Who has the poems? If you have them, we will start with Could You Be President? I need two people who would like to read. All right.
I think that might be coming from me.
Joel, here's how we read these poems. If you look at the poems, you'll notice there's a blue side and a red side. And then in the center is purple. So, Joel, will you read the blue? Lily, will you read the red? I will read the purple parts of this poem. We're reading Could You Be President? It's simple, it's easy, you can do it. 1, 2, 3, Joel, begin.
The Constitution in Article 2.
Spell out the presidential powers.
And if it could be you.
Were you in the United States natural born?
You have to live inside the U.S. 15 years or more.
Now reach the age of 35.
And that's all it takes, you gratify.
If you win the election, you serve for 4 years.
You may run one more time.
But be prepared to retire as 8 years come near.
As president, you'd be in charge of the executive branch.
Working with the Congress can be a delicate dance.
Congress writes the bills and sends them to you.
Do you write them to law or veto?
How would you know what to do?
The president is the commander of the U.S. military might.
Could you weigh all the reasons?
Maybe send young men and women to fight.
As the head of the country,
the president travels the globe.
Would you look good in a kimono?
Or what is that word?
Emirate
robe.
So think about these questions, decide if you must.
And then run for president.
You need someone we can trust.
Very good. And of course, I would rather be in an El Camino than a kimono any day. An El Camino is a 1970s car truck. If you're an El Camino, look it up. So anyway, and of course, an emirate robe is from the Emirates. It's the robes that you see in the Middle East. Now, very well read. Thank you. The first question I have is, and you can type it in or you can open your mic and talk to me. What are the 3 requirements to be president of the United States?
You have to be a natural born citizen, you have to be 35, and you have to have lived in the United States for 14 years.
You know, 2 of those make sense to me. You have to be 35 years of age. Wow, that's pretty specific. And you have to live inside the United States for 14 years. I get that. But what does natural born mean? What does that mean?
You were born here.
Born where? Here? In my house?
No, you were born in the U.S.
Where's that? Where's the U.S.?
In the world?
In the world? Yeah, the U.S. is in the world. Yeah, but what about, well, but I don't know. What about if you were born on a military base in Hungary when you were born and your parents were in the military? Were you considered natural born?
Yeah, those are considered U.S. property.
Okay. What about if you were born off a military base and you're in another country, but your parents are both United States citizens?
Yeah, you would be, because technically you would.
Okay. What if you were born in Canada and your father was Cuban?
No, you wouldn't.
No?
No.
No? Everyone agree that
so.
no, you can't run for president? Does anyone disagree?
Wouldn't it be something else, not president? It would be like some other kind of...
No, I just wonder if everyone else disagrees, because does anyone know what happened in the 2016 election? A man that almost won the nomination, where was he born? Anyone? Ted Cruz?
Yeah, what I knew of Ted Cruz. I don't know where he was born though.
Canada. He was born in Canada. The exact thing that I just said. His father was Cuban, his mother was from the United States, but he was born in Canada. So the big fight was whether he could or could not run for president. And the point is that none of these things are so set in stone that you can't fight against them and try to win. There were literally three lawsuits against Ted Cruz as he was running, going through the courts to decide. Now, let me ask you this. Who do you think would decide finally? Let's say Ted Cruz wins. He was born in Canada. Some people think that's not natural born. Who do you think makes the final decision?
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court. Of course, it's never actually final because then it can go back to the Congress. We have checks and balances and they can make a new law or they can revisit the Constitution. But you're right. That's what would have happened had he won. It would have gone to the Supreme Court at some point, who would have decided the fate of the presidency, which it has done in the past. Does anyone know what year the Supreme Court decided the presidency? Right after we all thought everything was going to stop because of computers falling apart because of the change in the 2000, the Bush election. It was that's amazing. Isn't that amazing stuff? These are how these things are decided. Now, the next question I have, it was very important. What are the three branches of government? This is a fourth grade question.
Legislative, judicial, and executive.
That's right. Legislator, judicial, and executive. And the president is, of course, the executive. And you get 4 years, and then you can win and win 2 more. Great. Next one, the easy poem over. Let's move on to choosing the president, the Electoral College. Something exciting to do here. I need 2 people that want to read. 2 people that want to read. Joe, Lily, wonderful job. Who else will do this?
Julia, Clark, come on.
I'll read.
Kenzie, perfect. You're in. Who else?
I will.
Yay. Was that Julia?
Yay.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kenzie and Julia, we're doing choosing the president, the Electoral College. So Kenzie read the blue, Julia read the red, and I will read the purple because I'm amazing. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, begin.
In 1789, when the country was new,
No one wanted a king, so what did they do?
the revolution was over,
Someone had to lead,
decided by the people.
but how to proceed?
Let each state send a delegate, one they trust.
To vote our decision,
To the convention or bust,
an electoral college was created.
so delegates could decide.
Over all of the nation who as president would preside.
Any citizen
In any state,
can play a vital role.
in this important fate,
Just be over 18 and to the polls not too late.
Once registered to vote,
they find their polling place.
And when election day arrives, they get a say in the race.
once the votes are counted,
They choose a party slate,
which means groups of electors.
vote the decision of the state.
The electors from every place
With a star on the flag,
meet to cast their votes.
for the candidate they brag.
When the electoral votes are counted,
Who is president when they are through?
Why, it's the lucky candidate with 270 or more electoral votes. Woo-hoo! Okay, that's a good poem. That last line, awkward. Awkward, and it says woo-hoo. I wrote it, I know, I would admit it. So anyway, first of all, the first thing I said there was that the voters get a say in the race. Why do I say a say?
They have an opinion.
They have an opinion, but do they decide? Do the voters decide?
Kinda.
No.
Well, kinda is not yes, is it? Yes, of course. No, the voters get their opinion, but then the Electoral College decides, and I've got an amazing thing to tell you in about 2 minutes after we talk about this. So this poem is dealing with 3 concepts. One, that we get to vote, and you have to be how old to vote?
18.
18, and you have to be one of these a citizen of the United States. Also that we have a national electoral college. And that means that we are not a democracy. What kind of government do we have?
Republic?
A republic, of which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, all those things. We are a representative republic, meaning we vote for people who are supposed to go vote as we tell them. It doesn't always happen. And by the way, and the third thing is that we also do the Democratic and Republican convention every year to choose who will be the president. Now, the point of that, though, is that was never a thing back in the founders' days. They didn't think of anything like a convention to decide. The Congress just decided. And that was all the way basically up to about 1910, when Oregon was the first state to hold a primary, where they let people vote to decide who they wanted to then vote for president. But it was a real mistake at the time, because only one state, everybody else just choose. In 1912, I've been telling this to everyone, Theodore Roosevelt wanted to challenge Howard Taft. And they had 12 states that did primaries. 9 of them overwhelmingly voted for Teddy Roosevelt. The others, pretty much. But the other 36 states had no primary whatsoever, and they could send any electorates they want. They sent all Taft delegates. Didn't even ask the people. So Taft wins overwhelmingly. Teddy Roosevelt leaves the party, going to run as an independent. So I don't want to go too deep into the Democrat and Republican convention, only to say that there's lots of delegates. Every state does something different. 2 of them do caucuses, where people have to show up and actually party and say, I want this guy, and have to fight and talk and stuff like that, where the rest of us vote, like in Kentucky, where we vote our primary. In Kentucky, when you vote in the primary, you have to choose which side you're voting for. Some states don't do that. You can vote for who you want. But here you have to decide, I'm a Democrat for this election, or I'm a Republican for the primary. Now, what I want to talk about is incredible. And that is something, a Supreme Court case going up this week about the Electoral College. Does anyone remember what happened in the 2016 election? How did Donald Trump become president?
He got more electoral college votes, but he lost popular vote.
That's right. He got more electoral college votes, but he lost the popular vote. See, what isn't spelled out in the Constitution is what the the electoral delegates have to do, or who they have to vote for. Just like we were talking about being natural born, some people think that the Constitution kind of says you have to vote for who you're told to vote for. The state had this many votes, you get this many votes, you're told to vote for that person. Other people think the founders, and a lot of founders scholars say the founders' goal was that you don't have to vote for who the people in your state voted for, because your people may not be that bright. That's what I love. The founders always said the majority may not always be right. So in the last election, how many was it? I wrote it down. 3 delegates who were supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton did not vote for Hillary Clinton. They voted for Colin Powell. Then they went to a bunch of Republicans they thought would side with them and said, hey, you know what you need to do? Vote for Colin Powell too. And then what will happen is we won't have anybody getting 270, and they'll have to do a whole nother election. Well, the problem with most electors is, and I don't know if it's a problem, but it's a thing, is that they are hired by their party, and most of them, their lives are basically in politics. Their living, their money, everything they do, they're with their party. So there's almost 0 chance ever anyone would ever go to the other side. So no one did except for these 3. They were sued, and they all paid fines because they were sued by the college. They paid a $1,000 fine, and now it's come all the way to the Supreme Court as to whether delegates can change their vote or not. Amazing. This is, I could not be, I'm giddy with excitement. So, by the way, in the past, 180 faithless electors. They call them faithless electors. There have been 180 of them in the past. Is anyone else fascinated by that? I just can't believe it. That's going on right now. Oh, okay, let's go on to the next poem. Next, the 7 roles of the president. Who would like to
I'll
take this?
read. I want to read
I'll
the
read.
You want to read? Was that Lily and John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll read
All
the
right,
red.
Lily and John. Okay, so Lily, please read the blue part of the 7 roles of the president. John, please read the red part of the 7 roles of the president. I will read the purple part, and I will stop and discuss each one as we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief of State, begin.
Okay. The president represents the people, but would never wear a crown.
The president inspires with honor and instills values with renown.
The president shows the world a proud American face.
Giving medals to heroes and welcoming our astronauts back from space.
Very good. I'm sweating terribly in this coat. Spirits are very sweaty people. Okay, so anyway, by the way, that made me think of something from the last poem. You know, back when the revolution happened, after the revolution, a lot of the people in this country thought we would just have a king, right? Let's have a king. They had a king, we should have a king. Why is a king a bad idea?
What kind of power does the king have?
He controls over everyone, and you can't like vote on them, so you don't get to pick who you want because they're from a family line.
Yeah, well, and even if the king is chosen originally, they stay forever, and they have ultimate power, which is really, really not good for anyone, no matter how good the king, really. So that's why we decided, or at least the founding fathers decided, they wanted to go with the president. But a lot of people think that that everybody wanted that. A lot of people were like, no, king's the way to go. Great. Okay, and of course, chief of state, the president is the face of our nation. He shows his face around the world, he talks to all the dignitaries, and he gives, you know, he honors a lot of the Americans that do great things, which is a beautiful thing. Okay, chief executive, go.
The head of all federal workers, the president leads the executive branch.
John.
Oh wait. My internet connection wasn't working right.
Cool.
Sorry. When it comes to enforcing U.S. law, the press wears the pants.
The president chooses who holds the FBI and the CIA.
By choosing a cabinet, federal, and Supreme Court judges, the president does it the way the president's way.
I'm sorry.
So
You can't eat in office.
is that going on in the office? Ms. Fairchild, or where's that going on? Okay. So anyway, so the president is the CEO of the country. That's why we say the executive branch, and that's why we call people executives when they run companies. The executive branch. Okay, go, chief diplomat.
Okay, hold on. The United States has embassies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in many foreign lands.
The president chooses the ambassadors who represent America and gives citizens a helping hand.
When foreign leaders arrive, the president greets them for celebrations and debates.
All the duties are outlined through the foreign policy the president creates.
Very good. The president, when you run for president, 2 things are very important. What you're going to do for the economy and your foreign policy. How you're going to deal with the rest of the world. And one thing amazing about the United States, like most, we have embassies in every country basically in the world. And if you are ever traveling abroad and you have a problem with the locals, with the police, with the country, with your passport, go to the embassy. That's why they're there, to help you. They're there to help you. Go there. And the president hires all those nice folks. Next, commander-in-chief.
If there must be a word, it's the president who says go, as the commander of our military might.
Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the seating troop movements, decreting the flight.
Inspecting our troops, preceding our defense.
Giving orders to admirals, commanding our generals, a strong face the president represents.
The president is the commander-in-chief of our military forces. He can say, go to war. It'd be nice or prudent if the Senate and Congress were in on it all the time, but sometimes they aren't, and they don't have to be. It'd be nice if they were, and the president makes those decisions. And he also really does get involved in where the fighting is going, not to the minutia, but in a large sense. Chief legislator, go.
The Congress makes the laws, but the president can influence what they decide.
Urging new laws, voting bills, it's hard without the president by your side.
Sometimes they play nice. The president might have the congressman to the House.
Sometimes in a stall, the president plays hardball with a speech their hopes he can douse.
Good. Vetoing. Now, so many of your parents may be yelling about this side or that side, and it's the gridlock, and that's the worst it's ever been in the world because the Congress and the president are. It's always been this way. There's always somebody stonewalling. They're always trying to make deals. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, but it's always been that way. And you'll also notice that in times of great tragedy like we have now, they do come together to get some bills and laws pretty quickly that can help a lot of Americans. Okay, chief of the party, go.
The president must campaign a bunch. It's a requirement that comes with the job.
Throwing support to the party, fundraisers, speeches so hearty, lending a voice, the press says no prob.
Good. So the president is also still the head of his party, Republican or Democrat, whatever it is, and they are required to go out and stump for the party. Sometimes they don't do so much, sometimes they do more, but they really hope to fundraise, especially to get out there and get money for their candidates so they can win more and more. Next, chief guardian of the economy.
Always on the president's mind, the economy, employment, and tax rates.
Balancing the needs of businesses with the welfare of labor, a president juggles many plates.
To create economy policies, the finance sound, the president will strive.
Our citizens and businesses can be free, prosper, and thrive.
And thrive. Very good. So the president truly is, and more than creating or shaping the economy, they need to be excited about it. They need to help business, help labor, help people, and try to balance the economy so that we can keep going and chugging along and grow. Obviously, right now, we're having a little struggle because of our problems, but hopefully it will all come back. And it will, by the way, it will. Never in the history of our country has it not come back, even in much worse times, because we are a resilient people. Very good, well read, thank you. Let's go to the first 30 presidents. I need 2 people to read the first 30 presidents and dig through these names. Who will it be? Bum, bum, bum. Okay, was that Lily?
Yeah, it was me.
Lily, take the blue, Clock, take the red. We'll send someone to talk to Sean. Go!
George Washington was number 1.
Adams, number 2.
Thomas Jefferson, he's number 3.
I bet all those you knew.
Deep breath.
James Madison was number 4.
Number 5, James Monroe.
Clark, lean into your mic a little bit. Will it help us to remember there were 2 James in a row?
6, John Quincy Adams.
The son of 2 so great.
7 was Andrew Jackson.
Martin Van Buren is number 8.
Onward.
William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, James K. Prevost.
Polk.
Yeah.
Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore. That's 9 to 13, I hope.
Number 14 was Franklin Pierce.
Add James Buchanan.
Buchanan.
Make 15.
Number 16, face we see a lot.
Abe Lincoln on the scene.
Andrew Johnson, Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford Burchard Hayes.
16, 18, or 17, 18, 19.
We can remember all of these names.
20 was James Garfield. Chester A. Arthur was 21.
Grover Cleveland, he was 22. We're almost halfway done.
Benjamin Harrison makes 23.
And Grover Cleveland was the same Grover Cleveland. He won, he lost, he won. Grover Cleveland came back at 24.
They tried to knock him out.
He found another door.
William McKinley, 25.
Theodore Roosevelt, 26.
27 was William Howard
Taft, good. We're great and moving quick.
Woodrow Wilson, 28.
Warren G. Harding, 29.
Calvin Coolidge is the big 3-0 from now until the end of time. Now, really, the only reason to read that poem is because you need to hear these names and recognize them as presidents, as opposed to thinking that maybe they invented the spoon or something. I don't know, maybe one of them did. Nope, I think the spoon was around longer than the United States. So anyway, it's nice to have these names, and then someday when you want to look into it and you're very interested, you can learn all about them. Okay, presidents 31 through 45, very important. I need one person to read. Who's in? Well, who would like to read presidents 31 to 35 by just saying basically a list of names?
Hurry quick. Anybody volunteer?
I can.
Okay.
All right, Lily, well done. 1, 2, 3, go.
Herbert,
Hoover.
was 31.
Say his name.
Herbert Hoover.
Herbert Hoover was 31. In the Great Depression, our country was bent. Who knows the years of the Great Depression, basically?
Franklin.
Oh, wait, I didn't
Wait,
say go.
he's asking
Stop.
a question, baby.
Stop. I'm asking everyone a question. Lots of questions in this one. What years were the Great Depression?
Right after World War I, so like early 30s.
Back
World
it up.
War I ended in the early 1919 into 20. So we zipped through. What was the precipitating event of the Great Depression? And it wasn't an actual explosion. Something crashed.
The stock market.
The stock market. And it was not a 5-year-old going to buy a Lamborghini. Did y'all hear that story about the police in Utah pulled over a kid? He's 5. He's driving to get a Lamborghini. Nice.
I saw
So
that.
anyway, we don't have that here in Kentucky. It'd be a Corvette. So anyway, yes, the stock market crashed in 29 because they had zero things in place like we do now to do anything but make everyone broke, and people just go bankrupt, and they had all their money locked in. No one thought to save anything else. So it started the Great Depression, 25% unemployment, it all the way up through 36, 37. And then what brought us out of the Depression? Here's a clue. Sorry, not in the camera. That's a letter. That's a letter. That's a number.
332.
No, that's a letter.
World War II.
World War II. Thank you. World War II. World War II. Wars have a tendency to get you out of depressions because you've got to make and spend a lot of money to fight a war. Very good. Okay, go ahead, Lily. Read the next one.
Franklin de Liavono. How do you say that?
Delano.
Okay. Delano Roosevelt was 32.
Corella DeVille. Only 3-term president. Yes, and the last. And he could have been a 4-term president. Then after that, they made the decision, let's make it 8 is all. Go.
Henry S. Tishman was 33.
Henry S. Tishman? What? What do you see there?
I don't know how to.
Truman.
Okay. Henry S.
Harry?
I can't speak. You want someone else to go?
Harry S. Truman. Was
Okay.
33. He helped end a world war. We'll get through it. So he ended World War. He helped end World War II by devastating Japan. Okay, try the next one. It's going to be fun.
Dwight D.
Eisenhower.
Yeah, Eisenhower.
Oh, let them struggle first, Miss Fairchild. Dwight D. Eisenhower. The country liked Ike by the score. And this is, in politics, rarely do facts and sense have much to do with it. It's all about the slogan. Whoever's slogan is the best. Okay, next. Next one you gotta know.
John F. Kennedy was 35.
He asked, what would you do? What did he mean when he said, what did you do? Who knows? What did he mean? Does anyone know? Don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Meaning he was the last president who wasn't out there just promising to hand everybody everything. He was saying, you have a stake here in this country. You need to work too for us. And not just at your job, you need to work for the country. Okay, next.
Lincoln. Yeah.
Lincoln?
No.
Lyndon?
Yeah, that word. Lyndon Johnson was 36.
And then Lyndon Johnson, just the opposite, said, a great society, here's everything. Next.
Richard Nixon was 37.
He announced, I am not a crook. And does anyone know why he said that? Anyone? Bueller?
Was he like the Watergate thing?
He was the Watergate thing, yeah. So, and if you don't know what the Watergate thing is, the Republican, here's stumping for your party. They broke into the Democratic offices at the Watergate Hotel, stole a bunch of stuff, and Nixon was actually involved. So he then quit. But when he said, I am not a crook, one thing he wanted to say was that, look, don't define me by this, even though he is. I have done a lot of good things for this country, and he had done some stuff that that really had helped the country. He also did a lot of creepy stuff too, but as far as kind of shady. But he wanted people to say, not look at him as a crook. Didn't work. Next. Gerald.
Yeah. Ford was 39 or 38.
38. He let Nixon off the hook. What does that mean?
He gave him a pardon.
That's right. He pardoned Richard Nixon, and it probably cost him the election. Gerald Ford never actually elected to any office past the Senate. Everything else was given to him. Next.
Jeremy Carter was 30.
Jeremy? Really?
It says Jeremy.
No, it's Jimmy.
Jimmy Carter.
Oh. Jimmy Carter was 39.
From peanut farmer to the West Wing. Up until this election, all presidents in the past put everything they owned into a blind trust. So they didn't want a conflict of interest with their business, so they put it in a blind trust. Okay, next.
Ronald Reagan was 40.
Fighting the Cold War was his thing. What's the Cold War, everyone? Anyone know? Who did we fight it against?
The USSR.
The USSR. Back in the USSR. So we fought it against them. And was there any fighting involved?
No.
No. What was the Cold War really about?
Like technology and advancement and stuff.
Spending money on weapons. Exactly. Whoever could spend the most wins. Here's the tip. We won. We had the most to spend. The United States spends 10 times more on its military than all 10 of the next countries put together. That's how much. And Ronald Reagan knew that we were a lot bigger and we had a lot more than Russia, because after World War II, we split up the world. We took half the countries on the other side. Russia took the other half, and we let ours go and had them fixed, and Russia decided to run them as communist countries. Well, you can't do that, even though you're stripping them of resources, because they need money, and they started to go broke. And then Ronald Reagan said, here, we've got Star Wars now, which was not true, but they were scared, and we spent a bunch of money, and they were broke. And I told everybody this, in 1989, in November, the Berlin Wall came down, and I called my brother, and I said, we're going to Berlin. So on New Year's Eve, if you can see this, I was standing on top of the Berlin Wall with 3 million other folks cheering and laughing and running away from M80s because in Germany at New Year's, they light quarter sticks of dynamite and throw them into the crowd. Scary, but it was scary. So you would hear fizz, fizz, and you run. So anyway, I've got pictures of me on top of the wall, and we thought it was an amazing thing, and it was. Okay, good. Next.
George H.W. Bush was 41.
He said, read my lips, not gonna do it. You read my lips. What did he say after read my lips? Anyone?
No new taxes?
No new taxes. And were there no new taxes?
No.
No, there were new taxes. And he lost. Ross Perot also didn't help. Okay, next.
Bill Clinton was 42.
He balanced the budget but had a few blips. One thing I mentioned about Bill Clinton is he did actually balance the budget, but in the first time in history that we started to look into someone's personal life and make it a factor in the presidency. Other presidents had done kind of things, but we didn't look as much. Bill Clinton was just a huge another thing. Ugh, let's not even talk about it. Next.
George W. Bush was 43.
Stood tall after 9/11. You know, before you were born, we had 9/11. You hear about it all the time, and it doesn't feel to you like it feels to us. In the same way that when I was in high school, they used to talk about the Kennedy assassination, and my grandmother was in the room one time, and we had the same day, and the teacher and my grandmother and all the other grandmothers, they talked about it, and they were so saddened by it. They knew the exact place they were when they heard, the country as a whole, and I couldn't understand it. Okay, sad, guy's dead, I'm sorry. But not until 9/11 did I understand this true national sadness, which I totally understand. Like my daughter just graduated from high school, and the fact that she didn't get to spend her last part of her senior year, she goes to Gatton, by the way. You all know the Gatton Academy at Western Kentucky. She did not get to spend the last 2 months at the dorm at Gatton with all her friends studying at the university, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to her life. She feels this great weight, and people are like, well, it's not like it's 9/11. Well, you know what? It still hurts a whole bunch. So I'm just saying that 9/11 for the country and George Bush, no matter what anybody thought of him, he was there and he held the country together. Thank you. Next.
Barack Obama, yeah, was 44.
The first to get health care done. You know, Barack Obama, what's interesting about that is people have tried to do some sort of health care forever, and to get that done was a Herculean task. Whether you like it or not, it was a huge task. Next.
This poem ends.
As an election year begins,
the Electoral College will decide
the candidate who wins. Obviously, this poem was written just before the last election. We know Donald Trump won, and now we will see how that happens. And we know the Electoral College decided. Wow, wonderful. Now, does anyone have any questions about all this amazing things that went on today?
Why are their names so hard to pronounce?
Why are the names so hard to pronounce? Well, some are. They're just because you can't see them. But actually, the ones really it gets a lot easier once you get past Dwight D. Eisenhower. I mean, you've got George Bush, and then maybe Barack might be hard if you hadn't heard it before. But you guys are young enough that everybody has. Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter. It's when you go back in time when people name people weird things like Rutherford Burchard Hayes and Buchanan. That's why they're odd. But now think of this: as the future goes on, we've had a Barack Obama, we may have a Sananjami Mustabanula or something like that, or we're really gonna get some. We're gonna have a Deja spelled with DEGA HA5. Because we've changed a lot of names. It's really fascinating stuff and interesting, and I hope to see it. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go take a shower because I'm really sweaty. The Oval Office is hot today. I don't know what it is. I feel sad. All right.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.